Do you also have to depend on intelligence from the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, MI6? They're both very involved because much is at stake for their countries here too.
We have cooperation and liaison relationship with a number of intelligence services of troop contributing countries to ISAF. However,
ISAF, International Security Assistance Force, largely NATO.
Yes. Countries. However, I want to say something with pride. They have a lot of technical means, but they will never ever be able to surpass us in human intelligence in Afghanistan. It is our country.
But they use Afghans too, and they probably pay them a lot better than you do.
Yes. Still, they are not Afghans.
Is that why we see so many civilian casualties as a result of American bombing? They get the wrong intelligence?
Probably yes. Probably yes.
Did you learn a lot from the CIA? That it said that that's how you started the job that you have now, is that you were the liaison with the CIA during the years jihad against the Soviet occupation, when you were working with the Mujahideen commander Ahmed Shah Massoud.
I did play a role in the resistance against the Taliban, and I did serve
and against
Commander
during the Soviet times as well.
During the Soviet time, no, I was a student. I joined the resistance by the time the Soviets had already left. So unfortunately, I do not have the full jihadi credentials. But I had the task of running liaison with a number of services. So therefore, I have learned... Intelligence services, yes, I have learned from many of them. Yes.
But why you? You were a high school student who quickly learned how to speak this impeccable English. Yeah. How did you meet Ahmed Shah Massoud, one of the best regarded commanders?
I joined him, and I offered to do anything he would ask me to do to contribute.
How old were you then?
I was 19. They started to put me in intelligence area in 96.
It was said that he did try to develop young, smart men like yourself.
Yes.
Such that his forces were regarded as being the best trained, one of the most organized fighting forces in Afghanistan. He had his enemies,
right.
But for people like you who worked with him, he was an idol, a mentor.
You expect a leader to be strong, charismatic, not panic, and always show he is in charge, be very clean, have integrity, and not just be a show, but a real person, and give you direction at times of crisis. Because giving direction at times of peace is very easy, and show you the way. He had these characteristics. So therefore, not only for me, every person in this life like to follow somebody like him. It was a very unique situation and a unique period of our history, yes.
And then you lost him, September 2001. He was assassinated.
Yes.
Some Arabs posing as journalists.
Yes.
Suicide bombers.
Yes. He lived a very dignified life, and he embraced a very dignified death. He was not killed by Afghans. He was killed by Arab terrorists. And by his death, once again, he proved to the Afghan people that he was struggling and fighting for a dignified Afghanistan, and his enemies were not the Afghan people. And that is a type of death few of us probably get.
What do you remember of that day?
Well, I rushed to the hospital where his body was kept, and I saw his body, and he had received a very big shrapnel in his heart, and he has received a big shrapnel in his eye. They were very severe. And we created a commission And the commission tasked me to be in a location where the body was kept until we solved the leadership crisis. So I stayed for 5 days in a location where his body was kept. And then in those 5 days, as you know, 9/11 happened. And it changed the course of Afghan history forever.
And you had the task of calling up the CIA, the Osama bin Laden unit, because you were trying to help in the fight against Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda?
Well, part of the decision was that we inform the world that with exit of Commander Massoud from the scene, terrorists may quickly overrun the resistance areas in Afghanistan. And I was tasked to explore possibilities whether anybody in the world will help us in any way. So I did make a phone call to United States, and I told them that we have lost our leader and the situation is not good. Is there anything you can do? Yes, I did make that phone call. Yes.
Sitting here, you make it sound as though you were very clear-headed, very rational, but you were sobbing. It was, for you personally, it was a huge loss.
Of course it was huge loss, but we did not lose our determination and commitment. His death strengthened our determination that this enemy needs to be fought against.
And 7 years on, even though the Taliban were toppled months after the killing of Ahmad Shah Massoud, the attacks of 9/11, you're still facing formidable threats here.
I think we are still underestimating the threat of terrorism. When some NATO members lose soldiers here, the public back in their home countries start debating the viability of the Afghan mission. I think that stems from lack of understanding, deep understanding of the threat of terrorism. We are not fighting a bunch of guys who are hiding in caves and they have some local grievances or they don't like us. We are fighting a sophisticated global network. They have access to finance and money, and they have an ideology, and they are very determined to fight.
The ideology being?
The ideology being that progress in this world does not belong to them. Leading world institutions do not belong to them. That they are facing humiliation and they need to be disconnected from the West. They need to have their own isolated world, even if that means absolute poverty and destitution.
So who do you regard as your main enemy? Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Pakistan, who you often accuse of being behind the attacks?
Combination of three. Taliban will become overnight irrelevant to terrorism if Pakistan seriously start to fight extremism, militancy and terrorism today. We are not seeing signs of Pakistan army, Pakistan intelligence fighting against these groups. They made peace deals with these groups, and now they are trying to make deals about deals with these groups.